Hello and welcome to What the Fuck Am I Reading? So, since we last spoke, it's been a while. I know, but I haven't actually read that much. Still, I have accumulated a few books that I do want to mention, so we're going to go through them for a bit. But yeah, there are not that many, honestly. So the first book that I finished was A Dowry of Blood, which I have already talked about in one of my recommendations video, but this is basically a retelling of the Brides of Dracula. And it's super cool because it's in a letter format, which made it super interesting. It's pretty horror-y, but not really, more like a dark gothic than horror in general. But still, this was super good. I gave it 4 stars. The audiobook was amazing. Like, oh, Constanza, I might be in love with you, but this one was great. I don't remember much else that I should talk to you about, but this one I highly recommend. It was actually fantastic. It's a novella, you can binge read it in a day. Amazing. Then I read Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Ling Tang. This is complicated because I read this thinking it was a standalone, and now it's been advertised that it's going to be a sequel, which I'm not usually a fan of. It might be my own fault because I didn't realize that this wasn't a standalone, but in my mind it was a standalone, so I was just like, okay, I'll read this one and I'll be done with it. And now it's another series that I have to finish. But having said that, I actually really like this one. I didn't love it because it's very focused on the romance. You're basically going to follow the daughter of the moon goddess. She was kept in secret at the moon, and now she has to escape, and she has landed on the land of the immortals, and she just ends up in the care of the prince. Well, not in the care, she's actually the one taking care of him, but with the prince and such. I do have to say the war sequences, well, not the war sequences, the battle sequences were good, but I feel like we jump around very interesting things just to get to the romance, which I didn't dislike, but it's not something that I usually love. So I was okay with it, but I didn't love it. Now that I'm thinking about it, it makes sense that it's not standalone because of the ending. But still, I wish it was a standalone. Still, this cover is gorgeous, and I now need to get a physical copy because I will need my matching set. But still, this is pretty good. I give it 4 stars. Very good in general, just that very heavy on the romance, and that's not really my thing. Then I read this novella, which is Hellmouth, which, wow. This is horror fantasy, and wow. Less than 60 pages. Better than some of the books that I've read. Like, this was fantastic, actually. If you're looking to be a little bit spook on a day just because, try this one. It's based, okay, let me get a bit nerdy here. It's based on an actual real place. Like, this book is about a group of mercenaries that are going to a town to investigate some weird signs. Okay. This book takes place on an actual location, like it's changed, you know, but the place is actually a castle that has this pit on the middle that you cannot see the bottom of. And the thing is, when they found it, there were actually like pikes pointing towards the fucking hole instead of defending the exterior. And then when the Nazis invaded it, they were also like experimenting because they thought it was the entrance to hell. And then it also turned into a prison, and they sent the prisoners down there to investigate, but only one survived, and he came back and he was nuts, and he was sent to the, you know, the asylum, and he died there just screaming. What the fuck? I love this one. I just love like these very weird, twisted things. I do have to say that if to see if they have found the bottom. Like, I should really research that. But this one, amazing. Gave it 5 stars. I think that is the only 5-star thing that I've read this year. But it was so good. Then I read Shards of Earth by Adrian Tchaikovsky because I've made it a promise to myself to read more Adrian Tchaikovsky this year and more sci-fi in general. Like, I'm alternating between reading one fantasy and reading one sci-fi. The thing is, dude, I love Adrian Tchaikovsky's ideas. It happens to me the same as with Victoria Schwab. Like, I love the ideas, love the premise, really dislike the execution, except on Children of Time, which is my favorite book by him and one of my favorite sci-fi books of all time. But the tone of his books tries to be really humorous, and I just cannot click with that. It happens the same to me with The Doors of Eden, which the premise was fantastic, but the tone just killed the book for me. I do have to read Children of Ruin, which is the sequel to Children of Time, but I'm very scared of tainting my love for Children of Time. But I'll still do it. Though, Shards of Earth. Basically, you have these things called the Architects, which reminded me a lot of the Reapers of Mass Effect. But they basically get into a planet and they build. They built. And they have attacked Earth, and basically humanity just had to run until they kind of designed humans just attacked the Architects, and they have disappeared for a good chunk of time, but now they apparently an Architect ship was seen, and now they're panicking again. That's the main premise, but there's a lot of rambling about in this book. There's also this dual timeline, which happens like with the war at first and then the present time, which I liked and disliked. I do not recommend the audiobook for this book, actually. I think it made it very confusing, and I had listened to it for a long time before I got my physical copy. So for a good chunk, I had to just listen again to everything, and I'm usually pretty good at audiobooks, so I don't know what happened there. I gave it 4 stars, but it's definitely a 3.5. The premise seems fantastic. The sequel is going to be a duology. The sequel is coming out this year. I'll read it, but for now, I'm not a huge fan of it. I will try Children of Ruin and another book by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and if I still don't love them, I'll just give up. Then I read The Chosen 12 by James Breakwell. I requested this to Rebellion Publishing. They sent me a copy. Hear me out. I liked and disliked this book. I think the tagline is pretty accurate. It's basically Lord of the Flies, but with robots and such. Totally agree. You're basically going to follow a bunch of kids stuck in a ship. They are the last remainders of humanity, and they are being trained by these AI to survive in this new planet and create a colony, basically. And there's a lot of moral debate being just like, should we kill the fauna? It's great, but it feels really young, and that disconnects me from the story a lot. Like, they are kids. It's fine, they're fucking kids. But for me, it just didn't work, which makes me super sad because I was really excited for this one. Basically, they have to, they're, I think 24 and only 12 can go to the planet. So they have to kind of fight between one another. And that was great, but at the same time, too cookie cutter for me sometimes, even though it's pretty like dark at times, like, you know, kids dying and such. The young tone didn't work for me, though there were parts that were really interesting, especially with the AI all around and some characters that were pretty good. But yeah, sadly didn't love it. I still enjoyed it a lot. I read it in 2 days. Like, it's super easy to read, but it feels young. It feels too young. Even, I wouldn't even say YA. I would even say like middle grade. So yeah, but if you like middle grade YA sci-fi in general, you're probably going to enjoy this. It's super easy to read. So if you've never read sci-fi, you can start with this one. Like, super easy to access. So yeah, Season 12 is okay. Like, I liked it. I gave it 3.5. Pretty cool in general. I still need to write a review, but yeah, try it. Then, because I wanted something dark, I read Alice by Christina Henry, and fuck, this was dark. Holy shit, this is a retelling of Alice in Wonderland, and holy fuck, it was dark. It reminded me of Alice in Madness? Something like that is the video game called. I don't know if it's based on this, but Jesus Christ, this was fucking terrifying. Like, it was so much darker than I was expecting. Like, I thought it was going to be horror, but this is dark. Like, super dark and super depressing. Like, some topics here, Jesus. We have torture, we have sexual assault, we have... I had no idea Christina Henry's books were this dark. And I love it, and I'm still surprised by it. Like, I thought it was dark, but not this dark. Jesus Christ. So dark. I cannot say anything else. So dark. try it. I will highly recommend you to try it if you like dark fantasy or horror fantasy, because whoa, I gave it 4 stars. So dark. Then I reread Empire of Silence because book 4 is coming out on March. I don't think I will get to it until April, which is when my copy will probably arrive. So I love this series. It's one of my favorite sci-fi series of all time. And in my mind, I like the first one, but I didn't completely love it. But I do have to say that the part that I disliked felt so much shorter this time around. There's a gladiator part here because you're basically going to follow Hadrian. He's known as the destroyer of this solar system, and he's telling you his life story. So you start with him very young. There's a part in a coliseum. It's sci-fi, it's pure sci-fi, but this first book is more fantasy sci-fi than anything else. And there's this race called the Sirens that has been invading all the human and colonies in general. And that part is not as prominent here as it is on the other books in the series, which is my favorite part of it, obviously, because you know, aliens, but it gets more prominent towards the end of the book. So the beginning is a bit slow, it's not the best part of it, but this time around, I didn't feel like it dragged that bad. Like, I actually kind of enjoyed it. I do have to say that the first time I read it physically, and this time I listened to the audiobook, so maybe because of that, it felt shorter, but I really liked it. I actually liked this one more on reread than the original time that I read it. The first time I gave it 4 stars, this time I gave it 4.5. It's not perfect, but it's good. It's going places. I will reread the second and the third one probably next month, or maybe, yeah, probably next month, the 2 of them, because the third one is so good. Demon in White is fucking amazing. Like, book 2 is good, but book 3, oh, pure sci-fi, is amazing. Then another reread, The Traitor by Cormorant by Seth Dickinson. I actually really like this book, and I have really liked it the first time around, but I think it's better on a reread, actually. I reread it because I really want to read The Monster by Cormorant, which is there. It's been a long time since I read the first one, so it was just like, okay, I might need to read this one first. But yeah, now I'm super excited to go to book 2. Basically, you're going to follow Baru. She is part of this kind of tribe, and then this empire, the masquerade, comes in, and they're just like, oh, we're not here to conquer you. We're just here to share some things. They're basically take control of economy and schools. So it's basically an indoctrination and obviously a colonization without being called a colonization. It's a very interesting book, but I think that a lot of people find it boring because it spends a lot of time with things that no fantasy book takes like a lot of time with. For example, economy and how to take control of a realm or a province with a coin instead of just marching. But yeah, I just really like the series in general. If you like political intrigue, you're going to really like this. Give it a try. It's much better than what people say it is. Then, as you know, I read Age of Ash, which I have already recorded and uploaded a review, so I will link it up here. But I basically gave it 3.75, 4 stars. The next one was House of Styx by Derek Kunskin, which was also sent to me by Rebellion. I actually really liked it. Though I have to say that it wasn't as hard sci-fi as I was hoping. You're basically following a Canadian colony on Venus. It's pretty cool, but it turns into much of a kind of a family drama than anything else, and that made me a bit meh. But the hard sci-fi aspect of it were amazing. So yeah, I really like this one. I basically gave it 4 stars. Pretty enjoyable. I do have to say that I don't think it's a full like 4 stars, and yes, I'm speeding this thing up because I'm running out of battery, god damn it. Then I read The Freeze Frame Revolution by Peter Watts. I fucking loved it. This is hard sci-fi. I gave it 5 stars, even though it's not really 5 stars, probably more of a 4.5, but still, it's basically about a group that is building black holes, and they have been doing this and they're signed for this mission, and they are trying to rebel against the AI that's controlling the ship. They have been doing this for millions of years. Super hard sci-fi. I don't think that it's that much of a hard sci-fi as some people think in the reviews, but still, my favorite part of the month, probably. And the last one that I read was The Girl in the Tower by Catherine Arden, which is book 2 in the Bear and the Nightingale trilogy, which I don't think it was as good as the first one, but I still quite enjoyed it and will read the third book. I gave it 3 stars. So those were basically all the books that I read this week. Let me know in the comments below what have you read and if you have read any of these books. Okay, I see you in the next one. I'm so sorry.